Have you ever just stopped and wondered, really wondered what you're made of? Not in some big philosophical way, but literally, what are the actual building blocks that make you, well, you? Today, we're going to go on an incredible journey inward to find out. So let's dive right in. It's a question that's fascinated people for centuries, and the answer is honestly more amazing than you might think. It's a trip that takes us from the world we can see and touch all the way down into a hidden, microscopic universe that exists inside every single one of us. So we're going to peel back the layers of our own biology, one by one. We're going to start with the big picture, what we can see, and then zoom in, getting smaller and smaller until we hit the very essence of what makes us tick. Ready? Let's go. Okay, so our first stop is the stuff we're already pretty familiar with, the complex machinery of our own bodies that keeps us going every single day. We're talking about our organ systems. Like your digestive system, your nervous system, the whole shebang. Think about it. Your nervous system zapping signals from your brain to your fingers in a fraction of a second, or your digestive system working on your lunch. Those are organ systems. They're like these huge, perfectly coordinated teams, and all the organs on the team are working together for one specific purpose. So if organs are the players on the team, what are they made of? Well, the answer is tissues. The best way to think about tissues is as these specialized fabrics that are woven together to build every single organ you have. So let's take a closer look at what that fabric is actually made of. All right, time to go even deeper. We're putting our world under the microscope now, and we're about to enter the absolutely incredible world of the cell. This, right here, is where the real story of life begins. And here we are. We've made it to the cellular level. This little thing, the cell, it's the tiny, powerful, and absolutely essential building block of every living thing on this planet. Now that sounds like a really simple definition, but it is so profound. Everything that is alive, from the tiniest little bacterium to the biggest blue whale, is made of cells. They are the absolute smallest thing that we can truly call alive. So how do we know all this stuff about cells? Well, it's not just a bunch of guesswork. It's all based on a set of core principles that biologists call cell theory. You can think of it as the rule book for what cells are and how they operate. And the theory is actually pretty simple. It boils down to three main rules. First, if it's alive, it's made of cells, period. Second, the cell is the most basic unit of that life. And third, and this one is really cool, cells don't just pop out of nowhere. Every single new cell has to come from another cell that already existed. Okay, so if all life is made of cells, does that mean all cells are basically the same? Well, not quite. Let's look at two of the most common types you'll find, plant cells and animal cells. They have a ton in common, but they've also got some really key differences that are crucial for how they live. So on one hand, you've got plant cells. They have this really rigid outer wall that gives them their structure. It's why a plant can stand up straight. And they have these little things called chloroplasts, which are basically tiny solar-powered food factories. Animal cells, though, don't have that stiff wall. Instead, they have a flexible border which lets them move around and form all sorts of different shapes. What's really cool is that you can see they share a kind of basic toolkit for life. Both have a nucleus, the control center, and cytoplasm, which is the jelly-like stuff inside. And they both have a cell membrane that acts like a gatekeeper. But those two big differences, that cell wall and the chloroplasts in plants, are the game changers that define two enormous branches of life on Earth. A cell is kind of like a tiny, bustling city. It has to bring in supplies, it has to ship out its trash, and it has to generate power for everything it does just to stay alive. So how in the world does one tiny cell manage all of that? Well, it all comes down to controlling what gets to cross its border, that cell membrane we just talked about. And to do that, a cell has two main strategies for moving things around. So the first method is the easy one. It's called passive transport. This is when stuff just naturally moves from a crowded area to a less crowded area. The cell doesn't have to spend any energy at all. It's kind of like a ball just rolling down a hill. It happens all by itself. But what if a cell needs to move something against that natural flow? What if it needs to pack more stuff into an already crowded area? For that, it's gotta spend some energy. It needs a power boost. And that is called active transport. Here, the cell actually uses its own energy to physically pump materials across its membrane, often in the exact opposite direction that they'd naturally want to go. This is the cell's version of having to push that ball all the way back up the hill. It takes real work. Wow, we've gone from organ systems to tissues to the living cell. But believe it or not, our journey isn't over yet. We are going to zoom in one final time to see what the cells themselves and literally everything else are ultimately made of. So, when we look even closer, we find molecules and compounds. A compound is just what you get when two or more different elements are stuck together. Think about water, H2O. That's a classic compound made of hydrogen and oxygen atoms bonded together. Right, so we know compounds are made of elements. But what is an element really? That's the last stop on our journey today. And here we are, the end of the line, the atom, which is the smallest possible piece of an element. An element is a pure substance, something that you just can't break down into anything simpler. Carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, these are the absolute fundamental Legos that build our entire universe. And there it is, our entire journey, from the big picture all the way down to the impossibly small. We've gone from a person, down through tissues and cells, past molecules, all the way to the fundamental atoms that make it all possible. What a trip. It's a pretty incredible thought, isn't it? That a massive collection of simple, non-living atoms can come together and organize themselves into something as complex and dynamic and alive as a person. It just goes to show you there's an entire universe of wonders waiting to be discovered right inside each and every one of us.